When it comes to strategic air dominance, not only are lavish investments in military technology important, but also time. China is making increasingly bold claims about testing its sixth-generation fighter jets, while the United States, which has led the development of combat aircraft for decades, just put its latest next-generation air dominance program on pause due to budget constraints. In today's video, we'll be trying to find out together whether China can seize the moment to change the global balance of power for decades to come, and what the United States will do in order to not lose its place. But before we compare what both of these world giants have achieved on the way to new domestic fighters, let's first define what this sixth generation even is. Despite the fact that all projects to develop a new generation of fighters are still mostly at the testing stage, experts have already identified the main distinguishing features of the representatives of the new fighter era. 1. Open system architecture. To make the warfighter as flexible as possible for future upgrades, it must be built on an open systems engineering approach and an architecture that allows it to quickly implement the latest technologies while meeting, or better yet, outpacing rapidly changing adversary threats. 2. Increased stealth. The stealth technology of these fighters will be one step ahead of even such eminent colleagues as the American F-35 Lightning II, which will greatly complicate or even make it almost impossible for them to be detected by enemy radars and other sensor systems. 3. Artificial intelligence. Not ChatGPT, of course, but no less intelligent integrated systems that allow you to effectively conduct cyber warfare, merge data, and expand the digital capabilities of a fighter along with other aircraft, all within a single network. 4. Optional piloting. The ability to shift some of the pilot's worries to AI and autopilot, capable of successfully completing missions in remote control mode. 5. Improved human systems integration in the form of even more advanced virtual cockpits than those currently fielded, all projected onto helmet-mounted displays and providing the pilot with a 360-degree view with improved awareness of what's happening on the battlefield. This also includes replacing the lion's share, if not all, of the physical instrument panels. Number 6. Manned-Unmanned Teaming, MUM-T. Combining manned and unmanned autonomous aerial vehicles to improve efficiency in a wide variety of missions. For example, the assistance of drones as loyal wingmen or the use of swarming drones to neutralize targets. 7. Directed energy weapon. Installation of combat lasers and other weapons on fighter jets, such as the Laser Close-In Weapon System, CWIS, for detecting and destroying missiles and enemy aircraft. Among other changes, one cannot fail to mention more powerful new generation propulsion systems, the potential for suborbital flight to bypass the most advanced enemy defense systems and neutralize enemy satellites, as well as the widespread use of digital engineering, aka model-based design, when developing new fighters. Now that we have a better understanding of the main features in today's guest, it's time to take a look at what the PRC presented at the end of December, which filled the headlines of the world's leading media. Not to say that the development of a Chinese domestic sixth-generation fighter really surprises anyone, especially after the completely successful creation of their own fifth-generation stealth fighter, the Chengdu J-20, which many still call the F-22 outlined in pencil. It's just that few people expected that China could present its brainchild earlier than the United States. It had seemed that only recently, in the winter of 2019, in an interview with the South China Morning Post, Dr. Wang Haifeng, chief designer of the Chengdu Aircraft Corporation, CAC, announced the start of preliminary studies of a new generation fighter, predicting the implementation of the program by 2035. The information was confirmed in 2021 by Chinese state media, and in that same year, a fighter with a tailless design was spotted at CAC facilities. Further reconnaissance confirmed that the PRC has chosen a flying wing design for its new fighter, similar to the American NGAD, to provide higher performance broadband stealth compared to the previous generation. And just a little later, at the Zhuhai Air Show in 2022, the People's Liberation Army Air Force, PLAAF of China, showed a model of a tailless fighter whose image rightly reminded many of the once presented X-44 Manta, a Lockheed Martin concept. And so at the end of last year, 2024, exactly on the 131st anniversary of the birth of Mao Zedong, Chinese and international social networks literally exploded with photographs and videos of the alleged prototype of the new Chinese J-36 fighter from Chengdu Aircraft Corporation appearing in the sky above Chengdu, Sichuan. The unknown aircraft was conducting a test flight in broad daylight along with the Chengdu J-20's fifth-generation two-seat fighter. People saw a fighter of impressive size as long as the 70-foot J-20 with a modified delta wing and chine lines extending to the nose. The considerable weight of the device was also indicated by the two-wheeled main landing gear. The lower central part of its fuselage was vaguely reminiscent of the J-20, and the wide nose seemed to hint at ample space for the crew to sit side by side. At the same time, the limited visibility of the canopy did not guarantee that we would be 100% likely to see this aircraft in a two-seat configuration, as was previously the case with the J-20. Interestingly, the J-36, seen in December of 2024, didn't match in shape with the mysterious tailless aircraft that satellites spotted on the territory of the CAC factory airfield back in October 2021. The engine exhaust pipes were installed in the best place to minimize the fighter's infrared signature, at the top of the rear fuselage, just like Northrop's never-seen YF-23 prototype. Also notable is the complex layout of control surfaces combined with a tailless aerodynamic design and 5 trailing-edge control surfaces per wing. These include protruding split flaps near the wingtips and will be used selectively in a mission-sensitive manner to provide yaw control in the absence of tail control surfaces, as well as simultaneously deploying to act as air brakes. One feature within the aircraft that was unusual for many was the idea of placing an air intake at the top of the fuselage and 2 air intakes on either side of the lower part of the body. Experts hasten to assume that this is due to the 3-engine layout of the new PRC fighter, but no one dared to say this for sure. Among the potential engine candidates, we have here the domestic WS-10C turbofan used in the J-20, since the development of more powerful WS-15 engines is still in progress. Other photos reveal 2 sets of large holes on either side of the fighter's nose, one of which appears to be an electro-optical window, and the second is made for an RF sensor and is almost certainly intended for side-looking airborne radar SLARE arrays. And where would the fighter be without a weapons bay, the configuration of which visually resembled the J-20, although this compartment will almost certainly be several times deeper and maybe even longer than its predecessor. Also on December 26, 2024, another prototype of a new Chinese combat aircraft was seen undergoing flight tests. According to unconfirmed reports, it belonged to Shenyang Aircraft Corporation, formerly responsible for the production of the Flanker family of multi-role fighters and the J-35 stealth fighters. The aircraft has a more traditional shape with sharp swept wings creating prominent triangular extensions at the trailing edge, tapering from about the midpoint of the wing and extending beyond the engine exhaust pipes. Unlike Chengdu, here we have exactly 2, not 3 engines, powered by diverterless supersonic inlet (DSI) intakes, angular in shape on either side of the front of the fuselage under the wing root. It's funny that based on the available photos, it's difficult to say that this device has a cabin. That is, there's no guarantee that it wasn't just a new Chinese drone that was shown off in front of us. But where they're completely similar to the Chengdu apparatus is the absence of a tail unit. Due to this, there's reduced aerodynamic drag, thus providing improved characteristics for continuous high-speed jerks and cruising flight. Among the additional features, both aircraft are almost guaranteed to have considerable internal volume for transporting fuel and ammunition, critical for an increased combat radius and persistence on station, 2 key problems in the Asia-Pacific theater of operations. And although it's still too early to draw clear conclusions about whether the Chengdu fighter was 6th generation or the J-36, we still dare to speculate whether its appearance in public could in any way influence the solution to the problems with the NGAD program that arose among the U.S. Air Force. Now, responsibility for NGAD and its future fate falls on the shoulders of newly elected President Donald Trump and his administration. We're unlikely to expect any obvious surprises here, since any decision by Washington will be aimed primarily at maintaining its technological advantage, especially among the looming threat from China. The Air Force has currently requested $2.74 billion for sixth-generation fighter development in fiscal year 2025, estimating total cost from 2025 to 2029 at $19.6 billion. Add another $9 billion for the mandatory Collaborative Combat Aircrafts, or CCA, component that operates in conjunction with new combat aircraft, and we get quite the sum. Many are rightly outraged by such high costs, but on the other hand, if your fighter can solve all types of problems and is the crown of technological progress, perhaps a price tag of a couple of $100 million is justified. Just look at the golden F-22 Raptor, which is still the rock star of its generation. Additionally, the Air Force is still considering the development of two versions of the fighter, a long-range one for operations in the Indo-Pacific region and a more local one aimed at European theaters of operations. Such parallel development of devices naturally requires considerable resources, including money. Like its Chinese counterpart, the NGAD fighter is 100% likely to be tailless. At least everyone who, in principle, has the right to talk about it out loud is talking about it. Starting from representatives of manufacturing companies and ending with people who confirmed the fact that back in 2020, the U.S. Air Force launched the first full-scale demonstration prototype, and by 2023 there were already 3 separate prototypes. In addition to an even more streamlined stealth fuselage than that of the Chinese aircraft, the aircraft will receive better stealth coating and advanced temperature control systems so that no enemy radar could even suspect that something was wrong. Despite recently announced plans to take a pause in the development of the manned component of the NGAD program to rethink it, the remaining elements of the family of air superiority systems will continue to move at the fastest possible pace. That is, no one refused to work on AAC drones or the Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion NGAP development program. New adaptive cycle engines created by the General Electric and Pratt & Whitney teams under NGAD and considered as an option for a major update to the already operating U.S. Air Force and Navy fleets of 5th-generation Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II fighters. If China does manage to be the first to deploy a full-fledged 6th-generation fighter, this could greatly change the global balance of power. With air dominance, China would not only be able to increase its ongoing pressure on Taiwan, but also greatly increase its influence in the South China Sea, thereby limiting the ability of the United States to protect its allies in the region. And it's here that a rather logical question creeps in. What steps can the United States take to reduce the possible aircraft generation gap with its sworn friends from the Middle Kingdom? For starters, Congress will have to seriously consider reducing the financial pressure on the U.S. Air Force, as the service and its promising NGAD program have repeatedly been subject to a barrage of doubts and budget cuts. Secondly, despite the moral pressure from the PRC, which publicly exposed the supposed 6th generation of fighters, it's not for nothing that the United States still gives priority to the development of network combat systems technology, where fighters, drones, and satellites work as a single unit. Furthermore, they have an impressive background in integrating data from different platforms, so improving the relationship between them will only strengthen the prospects of the American fighter against the background of its potential opponents. Thirdly, in addition to creating new devices, it's important to remember the need to modernize previous generations. The F-22 and fresh F-35. Regular updates not only improve their combat readiness and expand their arsenal of capabilities, but also compensate for the time gap between generations. And now let's finish off with something that even the most powerful superpowers should not ignore. We're talking, of course, about strengthening ties with allies. For example, with Japan and Australia, a reliable partnership with which in the development of technologies for the NGAD program can greatly speed up its development and partially distribute the financial burden. Now it's your turn to share your impressions of the new Chinese fighters. Do you think they'll become an actual game changer, or as in the case of the J-20, will they turn out to be weaker than their overseas colleagues? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more content like today's. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.